I went through a dramatic experience in my early 20s where I almost died. And the person that saved me, I felt so overwhelmingly thankful for. I dedicated the rest of my life to pursuing the best in nutrition possible to help other people live their best lives. That's why I formed the company. And this, over almost 40 years of experience in the natural products industry, led me to a lifelong search for what I believe is the most powerful anti-aging nutrient ever discovered. That's me on stage at 57 years of age. This is what the human body can do when you feed it the right nutrition. I was selected by Plant-Based News, the largest plant-based news organization in the world, as the number 40 most influential vegan in the world. So I'm happy to share results. I'm now 62, completely drug-free, and I can bench press 450 pounds. No steroids, no drugs, 100% drug-free right now. No medications, no nothing but food. You can do that too, right? Our body is designed to live genetically at least 120 years, 117 for men. Now, we're living 60, 70 years. There's not another species on this planet that doesn't live at least 80% of their natural lifespan, except for humans. And we think we're smart? So there are the two big groups that we normally think of, animals and plants, right? Plants are producers of nutrition. Animals are consumers of nutrition, right? Plants make all the nutrients that human beings need, with the exception of vitamin B12, which is made by bacteria. Animals don't make any of the nutrition. But there's a third group, Mycelium. They are the unsung heroes of our entire planet. No terrestrial life on our land would be possible without mycelium. Mycelium first took on the land and then made the rock into soil, then held the soil through their networks so that plants were available to grow on land. This allowed animals to go on land. So without the mycelium, animals would have never existed on land, including humans. So what is mycelium? By show of hands, how many are familiar with the word mycelium? Okay, oh, actually, a pretty good amount. Because I get this like, what's mycelium? Mycelium is the root-like structure of mushrooms, and actually, the mushrooms are just the sex organ. They kind of look like that, too. But the mycelium network actually makes up about 95% of the entire organism. Yet we're just talking about that little 5% over there. Everybody knows mushrooms, right? Good for you. So mycelium have existed for 2.4 billion years. Now there's some estimates that go a little bit back and forth. But they have actually found a single living mycelium that they estimate to be over 2 million years old. Now, how the heck can an organism live for 2 million years? Well, the interesting part is they can actually live forever. They do not have a natural lifespan because they are regenerative. They can heal and repair themselves so quickly and adapt to almost any environment so quickly they can survive indefinitely. The largest organism on this planet they found so far is an organ. They call it the humongous fungus. 3.5 miles wide, one single organism. They're the biggest, they're the oldest, they're the longest living, and there are 10 times as many fungi than all the plants in existence on this planet. They dominate this. They've lived here longer than almost every other species. They can last longer than any other species. Bigger, in many ways, they're stronger and even smarter. They can produce chemical cocktails. 60,000 different chemical enzymes can be produced by a single micellular organism. They can break down almost everything known. They eat radiation. They've got molds, which are mycelium, growing inside of nuclear power plants. They eat radiation. They can break down plastics. Any chemical that human beings have made, they can break it down with enzymes that they produce, and only they produce. No other plant, no other animal can do that. So why aren't we paying attention to these amazing organisms? This right here is one that I'm working on and will be available for everyone to use on a daily basis. It's called Rhizomucor. It's been in use since the 1960s for cheese making, for wine making, for Asian foods, fermented foods, yogurts. This mycelium grows so fast, it can grow the equivalent of an entire cow's protein in 24 hours. This is the most efficient, most ecological, and most practical and sustainable way to produce protein of any organism on this planet. Better than any plant can do, better than any animal can do, by far. This is actually how you can make it. This is a plant where we're getting our Rhizomucor from, and this is grown in water. Now, water is recycled, so it has almost a zero water use. It produces heat, which can be converted into electricity, and it pulls more carbon dioxide out of the air than it consumes to make it. Sequestering CO2 for climate change, producing free electricity, all while growing the fastest, most ecological protein on the planet. 100% bioavailable, a 1.0 perfect PD-Cas, that's a digestibility rate, and a complete amino acid profile that is more anabolic, higher in leucine and lysine than whole milk, eggs, or even chicken breast. What's not to like, right? The UN, as you can see, oops, let me see if I can go back. The UN even pulled together some of the top people in agribusiness, in ecology and sustainability, and they asked the question to the scientists and researchers and developers, what is the single biggest way we can have a profound effect on global world hunger and sustainability? And that's what they said, mycelium. This is the answer to our problems. Now, how do these mycelium extend their life so incredibly long? One of the cool things they produce to keep themselves alive is a bioamine, a polyamine. That is an amino acid peptide called spermidine. I know, funny name. I've already pointed out the mushroom look. But spermidine was first identified in human sperm because it's there to protect the sperm to make sure it can impregnate the cell. It's cellular protective. It's also in really high concentrations in mother's milk. Why? We found it integral for the mother to pass it along to the child, the infant, and that the infant's own immune system is hyper-dependent on getting that spermidine from the mother. That's why the mother's milk has so much spermidine in it. So I started looking for, all right, what are the top sources of spermidine? And you can see the list up here, tempeh there up at the top. Well, what is tempeh? Tempeh is mycelium fermented soybeans. So it's the mycelium, not the actual soy, although soy can pull up from the roots. You can also see mushrooms there at the top too, which are a part of the mycelium. But this form that we're bringing to market has 70 milligrams of spermidine in a single serving. That is 7 to 10 times more than any other food source on the planet. Okay, so it's got a lot of spermidine, and mycelium can live forever. What can spermidine do for us? We now know through this is an amazing study right here. On the right, you see what's called a forest plot, which is they took 146 of the top known anti-aging nutrients, NMN, resveratrol, just name any of the top nutrients out there, astaxanthin, all of these top nutrients that have life-promoting effects, and they plotted them on there. And you can see that one right at the very top. That's spermidine. That's how much more anti-aging it is than the 145 other nutrients that we knew actually promoted life extension. Spermidine-rich foods diminish the overall mortality of those tested in, and cardiovascular disease and cancer, the two biggest killers of human beings. Wow. Now, how does it do this? Through a process of autophagy. How many of you are familiar with the term autophagy? Okay, yeah, it's an anti-aging, right? All right, so basically there are two major pathways. It's a lot more complicated than that. There's AMPK, PPAR alpha, all that kind of good stuff. But to boil it down and simplify it, we build proteins, and then we got to tear down proteins. mTOR is the main pathway in which we produce or make proteins. And autophagy is how we get rid of those proteins once they're busted, broken, damaged, in need of repair. So our body has to take out the garbage. Now, protein synthesis happens when you exercise, when you eat, and when you sleep. And autophagy happens when you do calorie restriction, fasting, or sleep. Now, sleep is interesting because it does both. It's because you're not eating when you're sleeping, so that's fasting. So the body says, hey, wait a minute, we're not building anything right now. We can start tearing down, clearing house, taking out the garbage, since you're not busy building. That's why sleep is a short fast. That's why we call our first meal in the morning break fast. Exactly. Breakfast. Okay, but here's the weird thing. Human beings developed agriculture. Yay, humans, right? Now we can eat all the time. Yay, humans. Not so good. See, in nature, almost every animal would eat a lot and then have periods of fasting. So autophagy would be allowed during those times. Humans figured out, hey, wait, we can just eat a lot all the time. Where's the time for the fasting? Where's the time for the autophagy to happen? We're not giving ourselves a break, and we're not taking out the cellular garbage. Okay, so what happens when that cellular garbage accumulates? We call it senescence at a cellular level. As you can see, the senescent cells are what we jokingly call zombie cells. Now, why do we call them zombie cells? They're not just broken cells. They're broken cells that start making the party bad for everybody else around them. They start secreting these negative chemicals that cause cellular death to all the cells around them. We gotta get rid of those senescent cells, or it advances and accelerates the entire aging process. That's a kitchen where people produced a lot of garbage. That's what happens when you don't take out the garbage. You get a kitchen looking like that. Same thing on a cellular level. If you're not allowing your body to take out the garbage, you're gonna start aging faster. Now, the two ways we knew of, major ways, there's some other minor ways, two major ways we knew of to create or accelerate autophagy was through fasting or through a drug called rapamycin. Now, how does rapamycin work? Is it anybody familiar with rapamycin? Got some anti-agent, probably some of you even using rapamycin. It's an amazing drug, incredible, but it suppresses mTOR. So it forces your body to not make proteins. So your body says, okay, not doing mTOR, not making proteins, I'll go ahead and start taking out the garbage. That would be a good thing, except mTOR is needed to build cells, enzymes, and of course, muscle. And that is one of the potential negative side effects of rapamycin, is you can end up losing muscle. Not a good thing when metabolic syndrome is one of the fastest growing health problems in the United States. You need that muscle to keep you healthy. As Bill pointed out, that was one of the top 3 things, is exercise-induced muscle gains. These 3 studies taken together really floored me when I read them. So let's take the first one. Spermidine controls autophagy during fasting. So when they looked at, okay, let's take fasting. Fasting stimulates the production endogenously in our own bodies of spermidine. And they said, okay, well, if that's the case, this second study, spermidine is essential for fasting-mediated autophagy and longevity. What does that mean? So they took mice, unfortunately, sorry mice, but they took mice and they knocked out the ability for them to make spermidine. And then they fasted them and nothing happened. No longevity effects, no health effects, no cardiovascular improvements, no arthritic improvements, no cancer improvements, nothing. Because it's not the fasting that caused it, it was the spermidine. They said, oh my God, is that true? What about in a drug? A drug surely will override this. And sure enough, a surge in endogenous spermidine is essential for rapamycin-induced autophagy and longevity. Not even a drug was giving you the benefit that you wanted if you did not have sufficient spermidine in the body. Wow. One of the top anti-aging drugs used in the world is not effective without spermidine. Now, conversely, they did the other way around. They said, well, wait a minute, what if we just give people more spermidine and it induced autophagy without fasting at all? What? You can get all the benefits of not eating for 36 hours? Nutritionally? Oh my God, sign me up for that one. I love eating. Wow. All right, so the study showed that spermidine levels increased upon fasting or calorie restriction in human volunteers. We know that. Genetic or pharmacological blockade, that means either using a drug to knock out the body's ability to produce spermidine or genetically modifying or altering the mice, unfortunately in this case, it reduced the fasting-induced autophagy and even in human cells. Furthermore, perturbing the polyamine, that's spermidine, pathway, stopped the lifespan and health span extending effects that were induced by either the drug or fasting. This is incredible. We have a food intervention system that is required for longevity, that is required for autophagy, the biggest system to improve the health and slow the aging process of humans. Inhibition of endogenous spermidine synthesis attenuates or inhibits the longevity-producing effects of rapamycin. I, in my effects, have never seen a food more powerful than a drug, yet here we are. Now, when they reached further into the research, they looked at, as you can see in the circle, you've got spermidine in the brown. You've got calcium AKG, which is another anti-aging nutrient. You've got resveratrol in the pink, RSV, and you've got NMN, which is an NAD precursor. And each one can be affected, but you'll see only one of those 4 nutrients, and that is spermidine, positively affects all 12 of the major pathways to longevity. Mitochondrial function. There is autophagy needed at the mitochondrial level. Mitochondria are producers of all the energy for every cell in the body. And it's called mitophagy. So our body has to clear out dead mitochondria, broken mitochondria, dysfunctional mitochondria, just like we have to clear out dead cells. If we don't clear out those mitochondria, they dysfunction and you do not get new mitochondria to replace them, and you have less energy production at the cellular level, meaning the cell has less chance to survive. Every single pathway, cellular senescence, stem cells, chronic inflammation, dysbiosis in the gut, genomic, right at the DA level, telomeres, which we were just talking about. Every single one of the 12 major pathways, the only nutrient that they know of so far that can do this. Incredible. Now, some people may say, what about the safety of this? So they have concluded that spermidine has the lowest chance of causing adverse side effects of any of the nutrients tested so far for longevity. Now, the cool thing about spermidine is it doesn't just help with anti-aging. Spermidine has been shown, I'm going to back up a little bit to the other list is a little bit more extensive, right here. All right, the research health benefits. Now, some of these are preliminary animal-based research, some of them are cell research, and some of them are full in vivo human research. There are over 1,000 different spermidine major studies going on for longevity right now. So you are going to see a steady stream of spermidine studies start entering the market. Increased autophagy and lifespan, which we talked about, improving health span. Did you know the report that just came out last year showed that our lifespan increased by 2 years and our health span shrank by even more? We have now the biggest gap of 13 years between our health span and our lifespan. This means we are living longer, sicker. Thank you, doctors, pharmaceuticals, for keeping us alive, but they're not keeping us healthy. We need to change our food and what we put on our mouths and exercise more for sure. Improve brain function, reduces fat accumulation, increases fat loss, better hair growth. Spermidine is right at the scalp. Why the scalp and why hair growth? Hair grows really fast, constantly. And when something's producing that much proteins, it makes mistakes. There's a high probability of mistakes, so our body shovels a whole bunch of spermidine to our scalp to protect those proteins and get rid of those broken proteins. Those broken proteins cause our hair follicles to die, our hairs to shrink. 2 published human studies shown increased hair growth by 20% in 6 days of use. Increased thickness of the shaft. They did a study just for 3 months on, it's called a hair pull test. You tug it, and if you got any hair coming out, you're losing your hair. In the hair pull test for the spermidine, after they took it for 3 months, 6 months later, they tested 0 hairs in every single one of the clients they tested. Everybody else that did not take the spermidine, 68% lost hair. We're talking a huge difference. Even reversing graying in the hair. Increased collagen production in the skin, increased keratins in the skin, hair, and nails. increased lipids in the skin to make your skin look better, less wrinkling, vascular health, cancer health, immune function. Spermidine is actually produced also in our gut by our gut bacteria. And they use it to keep alive, and that spermidine stimulates our own immune function. As a matter of fact, it's necessary for an infant to get spermidine to develop their primary immune function. Without it, they found a 68% increase in allergies in children that weren't breastfed human milk high in spermidine. They even tried it the other way around, and they fed spermidine to the mothers, and those mothers had almost no incidence of allergies in their infants if they had high spermidine intake themselves. They're passing it on to their baby. What you eat affects your child. Improve muscle function, inhibiting sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss, liver and kidney health, anti-inflammatory, inhibition of Parkinson's. They've even had some people on high-dose spermidine go into remission on Parkinson's. Remember, this is a nutrient. It's one that our body produces, but as we age, we see a rapid decline. So it's even more important that we consume more of this. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, telomere length, the list goes on. The studies keep coming out, and they are incredible. Mycelium protein is in itself 100% bioavailable, perfect PD-Cas. It's got prebiotic fibers, beta-glucans in it for immune. Chitosan and chitin binds to cholesterol, binds to triglycerides, binds to saturated fat and LDL, and pulls it out of the system, effectively lowering cholesterol, lowering triglycerides, lowering saturated fat levels, and it binds to PFAS. Anybody know what PFAS is? PFAS are called forever chemicals. They're chemicals that we make in plastics that once they get in your body can take up to 12 years to get out. They're one of the biggest triggers for cancer. And if you talk about this accelerated cancer rate, it's because we're exposed to these PFAS chemicals in everything. This chitosan fiber is not found in the plant kingdom. It's found in the animal kingdom, but only in shells or in insects. We generally don't eat crab shells or insects. Now you have a food source for chitosan. There's bioavailable that can remove toxic chemicals out of your body better than any known fiber they have tested, including beta-glucan right now. This is amazing. This is the health span I was talking about. We're now 13 years between the difference between our health span ending and our lifespan ending. Oh, covered a lot of science, a lot of big claims. I know some people are going to be skeptical. This is what they call a pleiotropic nutrient, meaning it positively affects almost everything. Now, that's a big marketing term. I hate overstated marketing terms. But I hope I showed you enough science that you go home and start Google searching spermidine and mycelium, because the effects are there for you. And within a couple months, I'll be able to share that with you in a very usable source that you can use every day.